the winter storms outside, we thought it was time to stay inside and have a nice, warm, cozy chat with Lori from Purposely Unplugged. How are you this month, Lori?
Fabulous. Thank you. And because this is our February edition, I thought we should talk about do what you love, but from a work perspective.
Well, that's a good topic because personally, I find that that's being self-employed for so long, forever it seems. Um, I enjoy work. I enjoy it because it's something I've always wanted to do these last 20 years. And every day is kind of like, oh, what can we talk about today? And I think that aspect is really, I'm not going to get rich, but every day feels fulfilled. And I think that's important.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I'm self employed, so I feel the same way. But most Canadians aren't. And I mean, the stats around this, Dave, are that 50% of people really dislike their jobs. And 30% of people are just tired and overwhelmed, and their life work balance is just not where they want it to be.
How do people then, that's a huge number. Like when you start thinking about it, is it more because of the economics of it? Is it more the mental approach? Like, why are they not happy?
Mhm. Well, the trick here, Dave, is that this is the same statistic from 20 years ago. So, in all
Oh,
honesty, we've been talking about this for a very long time. But right now, current stuff from Hayes Canada says it's things about salary, work-life balance, wellness, managers, interpersonal connections at work. That's what the newest Hayes report is indicating.
when you said overwhelmed, is that of the workload or because of the like I think sometimes I wonder if people I don't understand it because I think I'm addicted to work. Like break this down for me a little bit better if you don't mind.
hmm Well, actually, what we should do is actually include that Hayes report at the end of today so that people can look at it. And there's another piece too. There's an article called Do What You Love, and we'll include that at the end as well. I think today, as we're talking, this is something where people are really going to want to dig in and have this conversation. But for everyone, it's different. And that Hayes report says it's everything from the job, the duties, and like I said, wellness, balance, managers, interpersonal, conflict management, all of that pops up in that Hayes report.
Do people feel stuck in their jobs then? Like I mean, you've got all these commitments outside of your work that you need that money.
Mhm.
So I guess all those pressures, right? They just come in on you. They might close in a bit and you don't see a way out. But
Mhm.
that's not the truth of the matter, is it?
Well, the truth of the matter is we have to be flexible and reinvent ourselves. And I committed this year to pull books off my shelf. So I'm going to do that. This is by Brewer. This is a fabulous book. Parents who have young people going off to college and university, managers, people who are leading and directing. That's a great book for them. And there's strategies in that book just to think about, well, who am I? What do I want? Where am I gaining, life work balance? Where am I not? That book is fabulous for that. And the other book I pulled, Extreme Career Performance. And this one is so old, it has been chewed by a dog, but that is fine. And both of these you can get on Amazon. So we'll put those at the end as well. But the connector between both of these books is we have to be flexible, we have to be creative, we have to reinvent ourselves, and we really need to look at who are we to make sure we're actually in a position that's
Okay,
giving us some joy.
well, let's back that up a bit then. So you have to figure out who you are. That's a big step because a lot of people in this day and age can't take that time to figure it out. Or is there any little tricks of the trade or anything that you could start with as a base to go, okay, what should I do? Should you write down all the positives? Should you write down all the negatives? Any ideas?
That's actually one of the activities that's in Brewer's book, actually.
Okay.
But always start with professionals as well. I mean, I do this because I am a career development practitioner, but there are folks in all of our communities that can help anyone make these choices. And again, at the end of today's podcast, you're going to list some of those numbers for me. And that covers the entire area within an hour around us, each different way. But in all honesty, there's folks to help you, and there's things you can do on your own. And it's not easy. Sometimes we find ourselves in a job because we were expected to do that. So those
Ah,
folks might now be at a career change. These are adults that are looking to upskill or change jobs. But young people are struggling right now, Dave. College, university, apprenticeship, the world of work, what do they do? So if you are a young person that's struggling and has those questions, reach out. If you're a parent of a person that's trying to make these decisions, reach out.
do you encourage, like I would encourage my kids my son's kind of on that path. He's trying to figure out where he wants to go. But I'm always like, well, try as many different things as you can right now. Like he's not sure. So he's trying to look at what he likes to do and sort of combine that with, what he sees in his future. And I think there's a different mindset. I mean, in today's 20-year-old, because I don't think where you and I were probably happy to get a job. They're like, I'm going to do something I want to do. It's not going to be dictated by this is where the job market's going and you need to do this.
Right.
Do you think that?
Absolutely, I think that. And there's so many layers to that. That's why I like Brewer's book, because it talks to managers who are working with these younger folks, talks to young folks how to make the decisions, and talks to parents how to be understanding as young folks make these decisions. And honestly, I like what you say. Some people are trying out lots of things because failure is not a bad thing. It's ruling out something that you don't want to commit 40 to 50 hours a week doing. That's a benefit. And you see it that way, so your son can see it that way. We're all in such different situations that I'm glad this is our topic to get us all talking about it. And if need, reach out to someone, whether those are free services or someone like myself.
And I think trying something new and you don't like it isn't a failure. I think it's a learning experience. And I think that's kind of where we get lost sometimes. It's like if you learned something about this, in this job that you did, then you can take that with you onto your next situation and learn from it. That was one of the things. It's really good that we're talking about kids in this aspect, because I think it's a different mindset, like I said earlier. And I think that for managers that maybe are in my age group or your age group, you've really got to adjust your thinking because it's a totally different outlook. You know what I mean? And I think that's maybe one of the critical parts that has to change within our economy.
It is critical, but that one's fairly slow moving. So that one is probably a topic in and of itself. And what I would offer to parents of young people that are thinking about post-education at this point is that it is possible in Ontario to move from one college to another, or to move from college to university, or to move from university to college. I think there's this big decision of make the best choice. You have to be in the perfect program. It has to be the right one for you. Yes, it does. And visit those campuses and figure that out. But if not, there are ways to transition. So that is on transfer.ca. Again, just so that everyone is aware that it's not a do or die situation. Get in, get some credits, and if needed, think about moving to a different institution. And it's possible.
The other part, too, that I don't think we really talk about enough, that I think you actually internally know, and it drives you, but you don't understand it, is to play to your strength. Like everybody, I remember years ago, this young fellow who worked for us at our summer camps was incredible with kids. Like just like I said, man, you should consider down the road being a teacher. You're so good. He didn't consider that a job. You know what I mean? And it was like that he wanted to get into, but his strength was so there. Maybe it was, and it's kind of funny when you recognize that. And sometimes internally it takes us a while longer to recognize our strength, doesn't it?
It does. And so from the adult perspective, this is that piece of reinventing yourself. Take what you do well, find it again. For young people, like in the idea of this fellow, what do you do well, and turn that into your passion, your career. And the other thing to think about is the work that we do is really how we see, how we know, how we understand and interpret the world around us. It really is pivotal. So it should be in line with your values, your skills, your abilities, and your joy.
I can see, and I'm going to go off on a little rant here, but I could see how some people in their jobs would do the things they have to do for the job, but it doesn't fit their values. And that would be a total conflict with me. You know what I mean? Like I would really struggle with that, and I can sympathize with that. On the other extreme of this, I want to just take a minute and get your thoughts on this. A month or two ago, I talked to a friend who had just was leaving their job. Their job was downsized. Their job was let go. And at that age, in that age category that I'm in, I'm like, wow, that's got to be hard. Like it's a big change for that person. What do you recommend? Because let's say you're in your 50s and all of a sudden your job disappears. You don't want to start over. Your market might be limited in what your job is because the job market has changed so dramatically. And the only thing I could say was, well, what are you passionate about? Like what did you want to do when you were 18?
Yeah.
Maybe this is the time to try it.
Yeah. And that's funny because that is actually highlighted directly in the article, How to Love What You Do. That one is by Maggie Wool, and we're going to attach that to today as well. And she does talk about that. What did you want to do as a kid? Which
Yeah.
is really what you just said. But for those folks who are older, who are finding themselves looking for work, they should really reach out to those services in the community that are free. Absolutely. See what is there, use those services. So that is part of our podcast because really they are servicing, those free services are servicing folks who are unemployed, who are in a job, they want to find a different job, even some high school students that want a part-time job. So really reach out to the folks that are doing that work. And of course, there's folks like myself that can help as well. Yes, follow your heart, do what you love. Absolutely. And if you don't know what it is, do some reflection to find out what that is.
Last question. What about in either scenario, let's say with the person that's in their 50s or the person that's in their early 30s and this job disappears, going back to school? I don't think we put enough emphasis on that too, I don't want to say re-educate, but maybe to expand your boundaries as far as your education.
Well, we call it upskilling now. So
Do we?
it's called upskilling, but absolutely. There are 75% of courses you can do online.
Yep.
In one way, shape, or form, which just means we have the flexibility. We don't necessarily have to travel to that institution to achieve that certification or diploma or upskilling ability. So look at that, and which means we have to come up to speed with technology if we're not come up to speed with technology. But reach out to those colleges, campuses, universities, reach out and ask those questions. There are liaison officers and people in student success who will sit down with you and talk about your options and help you and match you to what makes sense to upskill, to change, to add a certificate or a credential.
I think I read a number of years ago, it's off the top of my head, but the average person would change jobs 5 times in their life.
Every 3 years.
Wow.
So one of the things I do
That's
is I
even more
teach at
now.
Conestoga. I'm lucky enough to be in a course that helps people learn how to do job search. So I'm in the pulse of this every semester. So in all honesty, Dave, we will change careers, directions, jobs every 3, 5, 7, 10 years. Absolutely. So we used to think we'd be one place and stay there for years. That is not the thinking anymore. And for some younger folks, they are thinking in terms of 9 months to a year, and that is okay. So if you're a hiring manager and you see that someone has shifted jobs every 9 months, we used to assume there was something where that person wasn't keeping a job. No. They're moving around, they're being flexible, and they are constantly building skill and ability. So there's lots of these ideological kinds of reasoning that we should look at in today's labor market.
Wow. Yeah, it's fascinating because I just think about when I started work way back in the late 70s, what a job was.
Yeah.
And then I look today and I look at what the possibilities are. And you got to think the expansion, it's more open than ever. Like you got to think opportunities are more welcome than ever.
Yeah.
But the diversity in the work has changed so dramatically. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So Brewer talks about that. Brewer says we need to be flexible. That's one of the things she says. Extreme Career Performance talks about you incorporated, meaning you are the business, you are the skill and ability. Where are you contributing your skills? Where is that payment going to come from for this block of time for your skill and abilities? This is such a big topic. I'm glad we're looking at it. But for February, follow your heart. Do what you love. Because life-work balance,
Yeah.
which we talked about in November and December, really relies on this.
And I think the thing I think people forget too, even if you're in a job that you somewhat enjoy, but it's not what you want, there's those opportunities now to look around.
Yeah.
Like, don't leave it to the last minute. And I think a lot of us do that, where we're like, oh, I got to make a move. But explore those options now while you can, like going back to school or, maybe, you're the perfect example. You went back to school, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
See?
Twice. And
Wow.
I did a couple postgrads that I don't even really talk about a lot. Yes, it should be continual and ongoing. And so really, I remember my brother years ago saying, Lori, do you want to be the person who leads and directs people? or do you want to be led and directed? That's when I did my first university. So thank you to my brother for having that serious conversation with me. And because of that first BA, I was able to do my master's. Because of that first BA, I was able to do my postgrad. So really, that first kind of college or university diploma and certificate gets you started
Yeah.
for the rest of your learning journey.
Yeah, it's an excellent topic. We will probably revisit it again. I have a feeling that we're going to get a few questions about this, but
Yeah.
we'll definitely put the books up and the help numbers, website numbers, so that people can check them out. Just I think it's yeah, like you said, use these resources that Lori's providing, and maybe the opportunities are there, and you can start looking at where you want to go, folks. Thanks, Lori.
Can I make a plug for next month?
Sure can.
It is March break, so I am going to highlight some resources for kids. If you're going to head to chapters, I'm going to suggest some books. So next month, I want to talk about just some books that I use all the time in my practice. And the best one is Clovis Keeps His Cool. That is a bull who is running his grandmother's china shop, but bullies come along, and how does he handle that? Clovis Keeps His Cool, which of course is one of my favorites.
And I want to give you one last shout out, because I think things have changed dramatically a little bit for where your farm is and what you're using. Can you give us a plug there?
Absolutely. So I have moved the practice where Hope, my cow, is. That practice is now halfway between Simcoe and Brant. I am encouraged by that because I have a Brant office. I work from home in Simcoe, and she is halfway between the two. She's loving her new pasture, loving the new place where she is, and my outdoor shed. So the outdoor practice moved there as well. There's 12 acres. We can walk, we can talk, we can be out in the cabin in the middle of a snowfall, and we can interact with Hope or Grace anytime we want to.
I love that. And for those that don't know, just give an overview, because we haven't talked about what you actually do for a little bit of time here. And it's I always found it was interesting, like when when we started doing these podcasts, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. I never really thought about it that way. So give the folks a quick overview.
I'm an independent psychotherapist, and I can have conversations with young folks, older folks, married couples. I'm very well trained and have some diversity. But ultimately, if there's a time in your life where you're struggling, or you're just confused, or you just need to talk to someone outside your friends and family, absolutely that is what I do. But I'm also a trauma therapist, which means if you've been carrying trauma for years, I use EMDR, and we can move some of those big targets for you. So very blessed to be a therapist and loving what I do. And the outdoor practice, no water, no Wi-Fi, no hydro, and a cow on purpose. That's why I called myself Purposefully Unplugged.
Perfect. Keep up the great work. Look forward to chatting about books next month.
Perfect. Thank you. Take care.